Hello, this is Hatchet, Chapter 4, read by me, Mr. O'Leary. Again, this video will be in two parts. Hatchet, Chapter 4, Part 1, which will be from pages 31 to 35, and then Hatchet, Chapter 4, Part 2, which will be from 36 to 42. So, just to remind you what has happened so far in the book. So far in the story, Brian was flying to Canada to stay with his father during the summer months due to his parents' divorce. On the way, the pilot has a heart attack and Brian must fly the plane. He flies and flies for hours and then decides that he has to try and land the plane on the edge of a lake. It runs out of fuel and the plane heads down to crash. Brian is able to guide it into a lake and it crashes into the water. Luckily, Brian is able to swim out of the plane and get safely to shore, although he passes out when he gets to land. So here begins Chapter 4, page 31. And here it says, Brian remembers taking a bike ride with his friend Terry when he sees something he wishes he didn't see. So, Chapter 4, page 31. The memory was like a knife cutting into him, slicing deep into him with hate. The secret. He had been riding his 10-speed with a friend named Terry. They had been taking a run on a bike trail and decided to come back a different way, a way that took them past the Amber Mall. Brian remembered everything in incredible detail. Remembered the time on the bank clock in the mall, flashing 3:31, then the temperature, 82, and the date. All the numbers were part of the memory. All of his life was part of the memory. Terry had just turned to smile at him about something, and Brian looked over Terry's head and saw her. Top of page 32. His mother. She was sitting in a station wagon, a strange wagon. He saw her, and she did not see him. Brian was going to wave or call out, but something stopped him. There was a man in the car. Short blonde hair, the man had, wearing some kind of white pullover tennis shirt. Brian saw this and more, saw the secret and saw more later, but the memory came in pieces, came in scenes like this. Terry smiling, Brian looking over his head to see the station wagon, and his mother sitting with the man. The time and temperature clock, the front wheel of his bike, the short blonde hair of the man, the white shirt of the man. The hot hate slices of the memory were exact. The secret. Brian opened his eyes and screamed. For seconds, he did not know where he was, only that the crash was still happening. He was going to die. And he screamed until his breath was gone. Then silence, filled with sobs, as he pulled in air, half crying. How could it be so quiet? Moments ago, there was nothing but noise, crashing and tearing, screaming, now quiet. Some birds were singing. How could birds be singing? Top of page 33. His legs felt wet, and he raised up on his hands and looked back down at them. They were in the lake. Strange. They went down into the water. He tried to move, but pain hammered into him, and he made his breath shortened into gasps, and he stopped, his legs still in the water. Pain. Memory. He turned again, and sun came across the water. Late sun cut into his eyes and made him turn away. It was over then, the crash. He was alive. The crash is over, and I am alive, he thought. Then his eyes closed, and he lowered his head for minutes that seemed longer. When he opened them again, it was evening, and some of the sharp pain had abated. There were many dull aches, and the crash came back to him fully. Into the trees and out onto the lake. The plane had crashed and sunk in the lake, and he had somehow pulled free. He raised himself and crawled out of the water, grunting with the pain of movement. His legs were on fire, and his forehead felt as if somebody had been pounding on it with a hammer. But he could move. He pulled his legs out of the lake and crawled onto his hands and knees until he was away from the, top of page 34, wet, soft shore, and near a small stand of brush of some kind. Then he went down, only this time to rest, to save something of himself. He lay on his side and put his hands on his arm and closed his eyes because that was all he could do now, all he could think of being able to do. He closed his eyes and slept, dreamless, deep and down. There was almost no light when he opened his eyes again. The darkness of night was thick, and for a moment he began to panic again. To see, he thought, to see is everything, and he could not see. But he turned his head without moving his body and saw that across the lake the sky was a light gray. The sun was starting to come up, and he remembered that it had been evening when he went to sleep. Must be morning now. He mumbled it, almost in a hoarse whisper. As the thickness of sleep left him, the world came back. He was still in pain, all over pain. His legs were cramped and drawn up, tight and aching, and his back hurt when he tried to move. Worst was a keening throb in his head that pulsed with every beat of his heart. It seemed that the whole crash had happened to his head. Top of page 35. He rolled on his back and felt his sides and his legs. Moving things slowly, he rubbed his arms. Nothing seemed to be shattered or even sprained all that badly. When he was 9, he plowed his small dirt bike into a parked car and broken his ankle. Had to wear a cast for 8 weeks, and there was nothing now like that. Nothing broken, just battered around a bit. His forehead felt massively swollen to the touch. almost like a mound out over his eyes, and it was so tender that when his fingers grazed it, he nearly cried. But there was nothing he could do about it, and like the rest of him, it seemed to be bruised more than broken. I'm alive, he thought. I'm alive. It could have been different. There could have been death. I could have been done. Like the pilot, he thought suddenly. The pilot in the plane, down into the water, down into the blue water, strapped in the seat. He sat up, or tried to. The first time he fell back, but on a second attempt, grunting with the effort, he managed to come to a sitting position and scrunched sideways until his back was against a small tree, where he sat facing the lake, watching the sky get lighter and lighter with the coming dawn. So that's where I'm going to pause chapter 4, and I will continue with chapter 4, part 2 on the next video.